Reggae Interviews. Word Sound Power.
We are here at the home of Soundchat Radio with Garfield Bourne, Chin to you and I. He is the co-founder of irishandchin, a name synonymous with sound clash culture worldwide. But who is the man behind it all? I feel very honoured to sit down with a man who has done so much to preserve the culture, but he's always thinking outside the box to move forwards. We give thanks for your time today.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about sound system culture. It's my thing. It's kind of like, it's not work. We just shoot the breeze and have great conversation about the culture and the things that need to be done and the things that were done before us. Yeah.
I mean, I feel that we've got so much that we want to talk about today. The person, irishandchin, Soundchat Radio, and the future. But I think before any of that, we have to talk about something that's coming up in November, the World Bash New York edition.
Oh, crazy, man. Crazy.
Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes,
29th of November.
Yes, crazy. It's about introducing the industry to a new concept, not really a new concept, an old concept in which you kind of move the pieces around to kind of represent something that was already there that maybe we forgot about, right? So, the World Bash series is a celebration of sound system culture. Back in the older days, it was a World Clash, right? And World Clash was the highest stage in sound system culture, but it was an era of competition. So we were all competing and, winning trophies and bragging rights and stuff like that. I'm in a new era in my legacy now where we're celebrating, we're celebrating sound system culture in a big way. And I also see the need to, further break down the wall that separates sound system culture. And there is, for many years, there's been this invisible wall that you have hardcore sound systems over here, and then you have the juggling or the bashment sound systems on the other side of the wall, right? And it's kind of been like two different worlds functioning in one dancehall space, right? So if you're a hardcore lover, you go to the Sound Clash. If you're a bashment lover, you go to the juggling dances, right? But I want to create a culture where we can all celebrate on one stage, on one platform, and we need this because sound system culture was a lot stronger back in the days when the wall existed. You know what I mean? So everyone could exist on their own and not worry about what was happening on that side because we were good on this side. You know what I mean? But as generations have passed and we're starting to see not only the sound clash culture slow down, but we're seeing the bashment culture slow down and a lot of things changing as well. So the best way to combat that, in my opinion, is come together. At the end of the day, we're all sound men. You know what I mean? We're all selectors. Everybody, brandishes the same title, which is either you're a selector, you're a sound owner, whatever it may be, right? So let's fight to keep things going together. So World Bash is simply an existence of us being unified and a celebration of what we've created so far. Yeah.
And I think that the World Bash New York edition, we have Firelinks, Soul Supreme, Jaro, Bass Odyssey, Rory Stone Love. On top of that, we have the Dons of New York, Massive B, Noah Power and Polish, Steely Bashment, Next Level. Which I think is strong enough in terms of a lineup because, you've got the hardcore and the juggling sounds within there. But on top of that, you now introduce a new concept, a quadruple ceremonial crowning. That's real history.
Yes, and I'm so excited about, being able to crown. Because here's the thing, no one celebrates sound system culture. It's what is missing from the overall celebration of our music heritage, right? We'll celebrate artists. Sometimes I even see producers be celebrated for the catalog in which they have contributed to the growth of our culture. But the sound man is never mentioned or hardly mentioned. Sound systems are usually mentioned when the selector or the sound system owner becomes a producer, and then he's glorified for being a producer but not being a sound man, right? So I wanted to create something that stops time even for a moment and say thank you to the people who got us thus far. Why is that important to me? It's important to me, but it should also be important to the industry because most of our iconic artists, whether reggae and dancehall, came from the sound system culture, right? And we don't get credit up for that. And a lot of them now, they are decorated with all kind of accolades. They don't speak of what used to be. You know, they just speak of their recording career, right? So the ambition is to, as we see reggae and dancehall grow, my ambition is to make sure that the sound system culture is growing right behind them, or right beside them. Not even behind. Behind is the wrong word. Beside them, because it's equally as important. Another point that I would like to make to show the significance of sound system culture is simply this. When artists leave Jamaica to go and tour the world, one of the main reasons why their songs are popular in those territories is because the DJs in those territories keep the parties playing with those songs, right? So again, sound system people putting their input into the bigger picture. You know what I mean? Yeah, one will, you know, in today's technology, one will try to deny and say, oh, people are listening to our songs on YouTube and on the internet and Spotify and this and that. But at the end of the day, when I go to places like Europe and some weird places, Japan, right? And when I say weird places, I mean weird places that you wouldn't expect them to know the latest dancehall song or the latest reggae song. They know. And they know because they're going to parties, listening to their local reggae DJs who are introducing them to this type of music.
Yeah, it's the grassroots people that are kind of pushing it forward.
So if you're not celebrating the sound systems, if you're keeping award shows and, you know, you're giving out, you know, trophies or whatever it is for, you know, artists of the year and, you know, female artists of the year, DJ of the year, this of the year, that of the year, but I don't see any sound system of the year, any selector of the year, and that really bothers me. So to kind of try to fix that, you know, I decided that when I do keep stagings of World Bash this year, and it is a celebration, right? Why not celebrate the icons in the midst of the celebration of the culture, right? Because if it wasn't for the icons, then we wouldn't be able to have this celebration of sound systems, right? So this year, I'm crowning 4 selectors that mean a lot to me and my understanding of the culture. I grew up in New York, visited Jamaica back and forth once I became a dancehall fanatic, right? And these are the selectors that kind of showed me the path, you know? Rory, when he was playing Stone Love, we don't even need to elaborate on that, right? Sky Juice playing Metro Media, and the energy and the noise and the you know, the shouting and the, you know when you look at Rory and you look at Sky Juice, probably two of the most synonymous sound systems in dancehall culture, right? Because they were always playing together, Stone Love and Metro Media. You know, equally talented, but different type of talent. Yes. Right? The impact hit hard when you went to a Stone Love and Metro Media dance, but both selectors had their own way of presenting the music. Yes, right? So Sky Juice, of course, you know, it helped me to understand, and you know, Jagga B. If you're speaking about Afrique and you especially growing up in New York, these guys defined the word bashment before bashment was even created, right? These guys are the reason why we could later on create a wording to describe the culture called bashment. That's what it was. You went to an Afrique dance, there was a lot of, you know, excitement and in fashion and straight dancehall culture, right? With, of course, somebody like Jagga B toasting on the mic, and the party didn't really reach its peak until Jagga B picked up that mic and started to, you know, do his thing, right? When you look at somebody like Glamour Wayne, you know, Gemini Disco and the history of Gemini, you know what I mean? Where, of course, you had Welt and Irie and those guys that were doing their thing on Gemini, but Glamour Wayne was that selector who brought Gemini from being a vintage sound system to being able to compete, you know, vibe-wise in a dance hall with Rory the best and Sky Juice the best and the rest of the guys as well. So these guys, you know, to me, I owe a lot to them. And I said, you know what, since, you know, we're gonna do a crowning, it's best to just do a crowning of all 4 of them and capture that whole era in one moment. Yeah.
Because I think that the World Bash concept, it is a celebration of sound system, but at the same time, it is not a clash, as we've already said. It's a concert,
yes.
right? Okay, and this is something that I think is new, but I feel as though the patrons in the UK, in New York, where you had the first edition, they seem to be embracing it.
Right, they're embracing the concept. No, don't think it was an easy one to put out there, right? Because people were like, oh, here comes Chin again with his foolishness. Now sound systems it's a concert, right? When did we ever have a concert of sound systems? But if you try to define the word, concert, you realize that we fit in there as well. One of the things that I've been fighting with my peers in sound system culture to understand is that we have to stop putting ourselves at the bottom of the spectrum when it comes to entertainment. Selectors are entertainers.
Yes.
Right? But our culture only dictates and defines that artists are entertainers, right? So the artists are the entertainers, and then you're just a DJ. Or you're just the guy that plays the music. Nah, that's not how it really is, right? You are actually an entertainer as well, and you should be treated as such. The reason why we have fell short in our sound system industry is because a lot of the guys don't know their worth. They don't know what they're bringing to the table, and they've allowed this concept of them being the lowest form of entertainment in the culture. So it's almost like when you hear a concert of sound systems, it just doesn't fit, because sound systems are not entertainers, and entertainers perform on concerts, right? So we're changing that whole understanding of what it is, right? And World Bash is just designed for a rave. It's a rave. That's what it is, right? Sound systems go up there, they get 20 minutes to play, and they play for forwards, right? And the only person that wins, when it was World Clash, you had a sound system or a sound team that won the clash, and they had the bragging rights. World Bash is designed for the audience to have the bragging rights. That's it. Right? Because they win because all night they're just
it's high energy.
Yes, giving forwards, right? And that's what we are with it, man. It's just a new vision, a new path. I say this to all of my colleagues that there's nothing that we do in our lives, or very little things that we do in our lives, that we've done for 2 decades that we're still doing it the same exact way now. True. Right? We don't have the same friends that we had 20 years ago, most of us. Maybe you have 1 and 2, right? We don't have, we're not driving the same car. We don't dress the same. You know what I mean? Our interests are different. So why are we trying to keep sound system culture the same that it was 20 years ago? Doesn't make sense. Everything else is changing. Yep. The music that we're consuming is changing. The way the artists are dressing and performing is changing. So why are we still trying to make sound systems sound like day one? Doesn't make sense. It means that you're working against the grain.
Yep, very, very true. And I think that, when we look at the World Bash 2023, we had the farewell to Mighty Crown after more than 30 years. And the thing with Irish and Chin is that there's always going to be that element of surprise. So last year, we had Wyclef coming on. And I dare I ask you, what do you have in store for 2024?
I definitely, am trying to top the Wyclef thing, which is hard because it's a multi-Grammy award-winning artist, not in our genre, but respects our genre nonetheless, right? And Clef came and he wanted to, play a song. He did a live dubplate for Mighty Crown, as his way of saying, job well done. Thank you guys so much for your contribution. And it's a crazy relationship between ourselves and Wyclef, right? Which made last year's staging so sentimental. In the beginning of Mighty Crown's career, very beginning after World Clash, winning World Clash, they clashed Rodigan. Rodigan was their first clash, other than Jara, right? And they lost. And we lost
because of the dubplate.
Excuse me. We lost because, in the midst of a shoulder-to-shoulder venue, it was one of the rhymes dances that I've been in modern times at that time, right? Wyclef, all I seen was big what do you call it? Security guards coming through when the crowd being parted, and this guy steps on stage with fur coat, fur coat on, big black fur coat on, and I'm looking and it's Wyclef, you know, and Wyclef comes to the dance. He had the #1 song in the country at the time. It was Carlos Santana, Maria Maria. He hands the dub plate already cut and everything to David Rodigan. All David had to do is play the dub. David played the dub instantly. There was nothing else that we could do to go around David, and that was it, right? And we were pissed. We were pissed. When I say we were pissed, because, you know, at one point we felt like we had David. We had him in a corner. But there's no coming back from a celebrity.
Nope.
You know, not only are you playing a dub from a celebrity, the dub delivered it to you. The celebrity, yeah, it delivered it to you. So we couldn't come back from that. And at the time, I don't think that Wyclef understood what he did. You know what I mean? I think that at the time, his understanding of it was that this would just be a nice hype. You know, everybody respects David, including us, right? And David playing my song in a sound clash would be a wicked thing, right? But he didn't understand what was on the line.
The impact.
The impact and what was on the line. You know, Mighty Crown just won World Clash. They just beat Kilimanjaro, and, you know, there's a doubt on whether it was luck, you know, or can they go the full distance? And there was just so much on the line at that time. We didn't need no interruption from him. You know
I remember
what I mean?
that dance so
yes,
well.
we needed to prove that, you know, pound for pound, we could, you know, yeah, you know, knock it, Rodigan knock it, we knock it back, but it, you know, he interfered with that. I'm saying all of that to say that we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, it's kind of like things that come around full circle.
Yes, once he understood, like, oh wow, maybe I shouldn't have got involved in that, you know. The funny story was that we clashed Rodigan weeks after.
Yep.
And by the time we clashed Rodigan, Clef gave us the dubs, right? And I know that David was planning to play the dub because, of course, that was a big bomb. And I know that when he heard Crown played in the first round, he was like, oh wow, these guys, you know. And then we ended up winning that one. You know. Yeah. So you know, it's sound system culture. And this is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be energy. There's supposed to be surprise. It's supposed to be a level of creativity. There's supposed to be excitement from the audience. There's supposed to be preparation from the people on stage that's performing. This is what the culture is. And once you take away these elements, you lose the culture.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Who would ever think that you know, sound system culture would be so big that Wyclef would walk into a dance to deliver a dub? And we're not talking about in New York. New York is the big city. We're not talking about Miami, which is the big city. We're talking about Connecticut. Yep. Hartford, Connecticut, which some people will look at it, Connecticut, that, you know what I mean? And for him to take that showed the impact of the culture at that time. And I won't say that, you know, that would be the first time that like rappers and other artists have come to our culture to take it in. You know, Addies was really good with that too. You know, and some of the Brooklyn sounds had some of the, you know, the hardcore rappers coming in to kind of just soak in the vibe. My argument will always be that why can't we still have that? You know what I mean? Why are we letting that impact just melt away? Why do we do that? We have something that we didn't have to go to them; they were coming to us, right? So why are we going to them? Yep. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, true.
It don't make sense because, you know, I see a whole culture, an American culture, and I'm sure for people in the UK and other places it's the same thing, right? That comes from our culture, our soundboy culture. You know, some people like to call it soundman culture, soundboy culture. We have inspired so much. Why are we going to them? You know what I mean? I've seen, you know, our culture be displayed in a different way, you know, where the hip-hop guys are competing their catalogs. It's still our culture. That's us. Yep. That is a sound clash. No matter how you want to present it and rename it and retitle it, whatever, that is us.
Yep.
It's us, right? And you know, I don't want generations of people to forget the impact of what we did, and I don't want the new generation to come in and think that when they see Usher clashing with Babyface that they created the culture.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
Understand.
But the only way for us to do that is that we got to stay active.
Absolutely. which is why things like World Bash, I think, are so needed in the modern environment that we're living in. The way that people consume music is different. We've got an aging audience, an aging population of people, but it feels as though what you're doing with World Bash, we've got more females coming in. It's becoming more of a party.
Yes. And again, we go back to that wall, right? On one side of the wall, which is the hardcore culture, there were females, right? Females have always been, because you have females that love that energy. However, it was a male-dominated arena. The arena is a male-dominated arena where, it's forwards and it's energy. Depending on where you are, it gets more intense, because a sound clash in New York will differ from a sound clash in London. But both a sound clash in London and New York will differ from one in Jamaica. Yes. You know what I mean? Because Jamaica, you're outdoors, and they can, the flames and the fire and the energy and and the atmosphere and everything is totally different, right? So depending on the venue, and over the years, Antigua has also become like a second home for sound system culture, outdoor, open air sound system culture, right? But for the most part, we've been catering to a male population. Right? And then when you walk away from that and you kind of go over the wall, there's a bunch of females. They're dressed up nice and they're having a good time, and it's just a whole different experience. But again, it's still sound system culture. The objective is to create the hybrid. Because when I was growing up, Stone Love and Afrique and Metro Media and all these big sounds, Gemini and more, these guys used to still play dub plates and bashment dances. In fact, if I went to a dance, if Stone Love came to town and Stone Love didn't play their dubs, I felt like I got robbed. It wasn't Stone Love if the dubs didn't play. You know what I mean? So there was a time in bashment that we went, Afrique had some really wicked shabba dubs, and the artists from that time, and we went for the environment, right? But we also went to hear the dubs. Yes. You know what I mean? We went to hear those dubs. So I'm thinking that if it was like that before, and if we look back in history, all of those juggling sounds were competing at one stage in their careers, right? And then the juggling scene got so big and vibrant that they didn't need to compete anymore. It's like, you guys go over there with that. We're gonna do this over here, right? But I want to bring everybody back, because there's strength in numbers, and we do need the numbers, right? Because we need the strength. And I just think that it creates a refresh vibe and a different experience in the sound system arena. I did Birmingham in this year,
May 2024.
We did Birmingham, and a brethren of mine flew all the way from Canada, and I'll never forget this conversation that I had with him. He dragged his wife to him, dragged his wife to London. They both got there for the first time, and he tricked her into telling her it was a vacation. You know what I mean? We're going to go on vacation in the UK. She was game for it, but then he throws in, but there's a one night that I want to go to this event, Easy swap, right? Long story short, his wife hates sound system culture. She hates it, right? She came to World Clash, O2 Academy, Birmingham, and he couldn't get her to leave. Right? She said to him, listen, I think they're gonna play tune for tune. And I want to stay till that is over. And then in the midst of the tune for tune, he said, just spitefully, he's like, you ready to go yet? She's like, no, right? So, I'm saying all of that to say that we're creating a new energy.
Yes.
That even females are enjoying, because it's fun. It's not only about the music, but it's about the performance, it's about the speeches, it's about everything.
Yep. We've kind of put the trophy to one side, and it's just about people coming together and having fun, which is what World Bash is. That's what I think. Yeah. Now, your love of sound clash and sound system culture, I think, dates back to the 80s and 90s. Tell us a little bit about, you know, your early days, because I think that a lot of people don't actually know this, but you actually played on a sound in the 90s.
Yes, I played on the sound here in you know, I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, right? And you know, high school friends, how it always starts, right? High school friends, you start collecting records, and then you get exposed to dub plates, and then you end up building a sound system. It's hard to be part of what's happening in the Caribbean scene in New York at that time and not want to gravitate towards either building a sound or joining a sound system. You know what I mean? It was just that era, right? So a couple of me and a couple of my friends, we decided that that was the path that we were going to take. And I started to play sound systems, right? But we quickly discovered dub plates. And I was mentored by a selector at the time called Disco Birch. He's from Stone Love, right? He was the person who played the disco music on Stone Love. Through my immediate family, I met him, and then he became family and he ushered me through the early stages of voicing dubs and being able to know who is who, because I was still just learning the music, right? Okay. I used to go to the dances, and this is real talk. I used to go to the dances with a pen and paper, and I would write down the songs, right? This is back in the days when the new songs in the dance played early, right? So if new releases came, you went early, and Stone Love would play the new songs, the new releases, and we would write them down, right? You went to Afrique, and sometimes early they would play the Studio One songs. We looked at how the people were reacting to the songs, and you wrote them down. You know, tried to figure out, if you didn't know the artist, you would try to get a line in the song, and you go to the record shop and you sing the song, and that's how we learned. Yeah, that's how we learned as children, right? And then I also, you know, I was a member of 12 Tribe, right? Which, you know, there were elder dreads there, Rastas there, that also had a very knowledgeable understanding of the music. So I learned a lot there as well. So I was grabbing the music from everywhere and learning, you know. My partner at the time with Agony, he was already always in depth in the understanding of music because he grew up in 12 Tribe and then brought me into 12 Tribe with him, right? So the music was all around, and all we had to do is pay attention and learn how to present it, right? So once we started to gather all of these dubs, the next best thing was to clash. We automatically became a sound system that wanted to compete because all of the big cassettes of the dubs were coming from Jamaica. So you were listening to the Jarros and the this and the that and the Black Cats and the Bass Odysseys and the Bodyguards and all of these sound systems. And we were like, yo, we could do that, you know? And we had the dubs to do it. So of course, locally, you start doing your little small competitions here and there, but we quickly grew out of that because we had ambitions on becoming a major sound system. So, in those early days, maybe I want to say about maybe 90, I was still in high school when we were playing sound systems, right? So I got out of high school in 92. By the time we graduated from high school, we were full blown, killing it in our part of New York, right? And then we started to bring in the sound system. So whether it would be Stone Love or whether it would be Bodyguard and, Gemini and these sounds, and I was actually able to live, part of my dream by competing with them and beating the hell out of a lot of them too, But the real stamp, I believe, happened for us when Black Cat came here for the first time in their life. Black Cat, Black Cat came. No, before Black Cat, Jaro, okay. Right? This is before I even started Irish and Chin. This is just straight sound boy. And, we were hired to play with Black Cat because they were coming here for the first time to clash King Addies. Right? King Addies and a friend, I believe the promoter was a friend of his, and got to do a spin-off before the big dance. Right. So we had an open ear dance with Black Cat, which would have been his first performance ever in America. So we're getting all of these cassettes and all of this stuff, and this is the man, this is sound, and we were able to beat him. And beat him not in a close. He doesn't like to admit it, but the people that were there and those who remember that time, and it was that accepting moment for us. You know what I mean? It was that door opening moment for us where it was like, yes, Chin them, they beat Panther. You know what I mean? On a level in which couldn't be denied. And then later on, I think the next week or so, when he went to Clash Addies, which was the real reason why he was here, you can hear Addies, you know, on the cassette saying to him, yo, y'all going like y'all bad sound, I want sound of Queens just rough you up last week. Yes, so it was one of those moments. And I think that's where the love came from. And I think that's where my success comes from as well. The fact that I've played both sides of the fence, you know what I mean? I stood around sound systems, I rolled up speaker wire, I tried to fit speaker boxes into small vehicles because we had a party to play, and I stole my father's records out, and I stole my amps out, and we did all of these things as kids, you know what I mean? My dad might have an equalizer that we're gonna use because we're gonna play at this party, and then my brethren has a tape deck, and the next man have records, and that's what we did. And we put it together, and we went and played at these parties, you know? Sometimes when we were supposed to be in school, we would have here in New York what we call hooky parties, right? You know, so that means nobody goes to school that day. They go into the designation where the party is, and that's what we would do to build up our following and all of that. So as a young kid, when we decided to play at a party, we had all of these school kids that would come out to cheer for us, and the vibe was what it was, you know what I mean? And you know, it was a good thing because I got to grow. I got in at the right time. I got in with the Sprague Benzes and the Madcabras and the Buju Bantons and all of these artists that from that time, the Beanie Mans, the Capitans. So we ended up growing with a relationship with them, knowing them because we were all starting out. We were all broke, you know, starting out together, right? And eventually when we found our way, and you know, later on in life, I'm now presenting Mighty Crown. It was an easier negotiation for dubs and stuff like that because of the history that we had with them. And the rest of it is history. You guys know that, you know, Mighty Crown ended up tearing up the industry. Irish and Chin, we've been very much consistent. But I believe the consistency and the understanding, and I say this all the time to people, we all have gifts. There's something about every single one of us that is undeniable. And even that thing that is undeniable, it shadows maybe 5 or 6 weaknesses that we have because we're human, right? For me, that undeniable thing is sound system culture. I understand it. There are things that I don't understand, right? But sound system culture and knowing how to present it and keep it alive and knowing how to compete and knowing how to just, you know, create the vibe.
The energy. Yep.
Yes.
That's Chin.
That's my thing. Yep. It's my thing. It's my passion. I live it. I was telling someone the other day that being a sound man or being a sound boy, it's not about playing music. It's a lifestyle. It's a mentality. It's a lifestyle. And you're not going to be successful if you look at it as a job and not a lifestyle. All of us in this industry that you see, the majority, I want to say the majority, right? The majority of us that are successful now, we all have a story because it's our life. We didn't just drop out of the sky and became who we are. True. You know what I mean? Because of the lifestyle. We followed this road to success, and we stopped at every corner and we learned what we needed to learn. And when we absorbed as much as we needed to, we proceeded to the next corner and so on until we got where we are. You know what I mean? So it's a lifestyle, and you know, you can't bring it forward if you're not part of the lifestyle.
True. Yeah. And I think that you know, a lot of our viewers that are watching today know that you have played such a pivotal role in the development of a lot of the younger sounds, and they, you know, you respect and value sound system culture so much. And like you said at the beginning of the discussion, it doesn't seem like work to you, and we can see that everything that you've done for the last 25 or so years has been from the heart. It's a labor of love.
It's a labor of love, and you know, I have a good position. I get to be, you know, I don't like to use the word boss, right? Because, you know, boss is a strong word, but I get to play an important role in the careers of the people that I grew up admiring. There's nothing better than that. You know what I mean? These guys were my heroes in my childhood days. And now, you know, I mean something to them as they meant something to me when I was younger. You know what I mean? So a lot of them seen me grow. A lot of the people that I work with can say, oh, I remember when Chin did this and I met Chin. Rodigan likes to tell this story all the time, which is so true, of, you know, this young kid that drove like 6 hours just to come and talk to him and tell him about, what I'm inspiring to be and how honored I would be if he would work for me, and that's how I met David. He was at a gig and I drove because I just had my mind set on, I want to meet Rodigan and I want to be able to present him, if not now, sometime in the future, and so when he tells me, it just brings me back to a place. But again, you have to be hungry for it. You have to have the right intentions for it. You can't look at the culture as may I keep a dance for make some money. You know what I mean? And I've never done it that way. It's a business, yes, but I've never had this intention to say, yo, may I keep a dance for make some money. I'm keeping a dance because it's my business, but also I'm pushing a culture forward. In my conversations with some of the selectors, some of the top selectors, I always say to them, dude, I need you to understand this, and I need you to really, really take some, thought to what I'm saying. If the industry dies, your legacy dies too. True. And if your legacy dies, it means that everything that you spent your life doing wasn't worth it, right? So all of the kills that you claim that you have, all of the forwards that you got in the bashment parties, whatever it is, if the sport dies, you die. The legacy dies with the sport. So you have a duty to keep it going. Even if you can't do what you used to do anymore, your job is to prepare it for other people to inherit it, because once they inherit it and it's in safekeeping, your legacy is intact.
Intact, yep.
Right? So if I walk away from sound system culture because I say, yo, something, I make enough money out of this, I gotta find something else to do, right? And of course we won't be able to do this forever, but I want to do it as long as I can to ensure that the legacies of the people who really built it, the bricklayers, the cornerstones, still become part of the conversation, right? If we didn't have if there's no more basketball, then there's no more conversation about Kobe or LeBron or Jordan. Why? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. So if you look at that, you'll understand that, and that's coming from a sound man's perspective. And only a sound man would look at it that way. So in our culture, I want to make this clear. You have promoters and then you have sound people. I'm a sound man. I'm not a promoter. Promoters do events to make money. That's it. That's their sole interest, is to make money. I am a sound man that happens to do the job of a promoter, but I'm a sound person first. And you want every event to be exciting. You want every event to be something that people are going to talk about for days and months and years to come, because that is what builds the legacy.
Yeah. And I think when we sort of look back at the history of the dances that Irish and Chin have kept, even if we were to go back to 1998, Coxsone Downbeat Jaro, it's still one that people talk about. It is still one that talks about. So you have created that legacy.
Now here's such a funny thing. Sorry to cut you, right? Think about how passionate, and how lucky I've been with this industry. In 1998, we were just starting out the World Clash series, right? At that time, I reached out to Saxon, couldn't get them. Okay. Right? Yes. My initial reach was to Saxon. I'll never forget the conversation, because I was, at college at the time, and I reached out to them and it just wasn't working out, right? And somebody told me about Coxsone sound. I didn't know about Coxsone, right? And somebody was like, yo, listen, if you can't get Saxon, the next best sound is use Coxsone. Like, yo, let's go. Call Coxsone, and we got everything, working. During that time of working with Coxsone, I was able to get a lot of knowledge from Lloyd Coxsone. You know what I mean? And this would be a younger Lloyd Coxsone. We're talking about 30 years ago, right? And I was able to get a lot of cultural understanding from him from an English perspective, yes. Right? And what a lot of people don't understand is that the arena, as big as it is, it's not connected at all. So you can be someone that grew up in the dance hall in Jamaica and not understand the lifestyle of the ones in New York or the ones in England. So I grew up, with King Addies and King Addies, Babyface was my he was that guy for me,
Yes.
as far as learning and observing how to compete, right? But I knew nothing about what was happening in England at the time. And to be honest with you, I didn't care, because I was fooled to feel like what's happening in my four walls represents the world,
Yep.
right? So when I got the chance to meet Lloydie now and, you know, listen to the stories and listen to his contribution and the impact of his legacy, I'm like, wow, I'm missing out. I missed out, right? Now, fast forward now to 30 years later, I get to crown this man in Birmingham.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking.
You know what I mean? So it was a moment for me as well, because he was there, not from the beginning, but he's part of my story. He's part of my understanding. He introduced me and sparked my interest to what was going on the other side of the Atlantic. Yeah.
Because I think you're absolutely right in that. I think that reggae music in general, not just sound system, is very much micro communities.
Yeah.
What's kind of going on in England is totally different to mainland Europe and so forth. So you're totally right there.
And we, you know, and with that, we rarely get an individual that dominates all corners. You know what I mean? You rarely get that situation, right? And because you rarely get that situation, we fool ourselves into feeling that, well, Jamaica's the only thing that counts. You know what I mean? Because usually when the Jamaican artists or the Jamaican selectors bus, they visit all four corners, right? But when the foreign sounds bus, they don't get to visit all four corners. You know what I mean? So
They stay in the region.
They stay in the region, right? And the business has always been like that until you get somebody like a King Addies that beats the odds, or a freak that beats the odds and starts to make the tracks, you know, and visit the corners as well. So you gotta, you know, my whole point is that you have to really understand the culture and all dynamics of it, just not the surface. You gotta go way below the surface in order to understand what the culture is, what it needs to continue, and how to make it continue, right? And every stage of our culture plays a factor in what the decision needs to be for a better tomorrow. You got to take account for everything. There's, you know, as you put everything on the table, you're going to say to yourself, well, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this. But everything has to be on the table.
Yes.
Everything has to be on the table for you to plan for what the execution will be tomorrow. So if you're trying to create tomorrow with half of the pieces on the board, there's no way that's going to last, right? And I'm a believer that, you know, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Whatever we're doing has already been done, some shape, form, or whatever, right? So we gotta sometimes look for the past, look what was working, and kind of modernize it and repackage it in a way that, you know, give it that modern twist and that flair.
Yeah, it's got to appeal to a wider audience.
Yes, and you know, I think that with that being said, I think that's where we're stuck right now. When it comes to our sound system culture, we're stuck with what it's going to be tomorrow. You know what I mean? Because the people who, you know, are at the tables in various different corners of the world, they're holding so tight onto what was that they can't see what needs to be. And that is the problem. And when that happens, it equates to no growth. And that's why we're where we are. Because, you know, traditionally, you know, I spoke about the wonderful parts of sound system culture up until this point. Now there's bad parts of the culture, right? The bad parts of the culture is that a lot of us grow up with habits, inherited habits, right? If you don't have dub plates, you're not a sound man. Right? You know, the stronger the dub plate, the stronger you are as a sound, right? These are concepts that we grew up with, you know what I mean? The dub plate defines the sound system, right? Which in modern day times, that's not necessarily so anymore, right? You know, in the past, you were able to use talent. You were able to hide talent. Now, let me rephrase that. You were able to place dub plates in front of talent. So you didn't have to be that talented. You just know how to drop a needle, and maybe know when to play what, right? It took a lot less skill back in the days to compete, because back in the days we were playing one song at a time. Bust the place, you pick up the needle, you play back the same song, you get another forward, right? And when you're tired of getting that forward, you move over to the next and you do it all again. That's what it was about, right? So there was no real skilled in the thing, right? It was just an understanding. Some people would want to call that a skill, but I'm not calling it a skill. It was an understanding of how to execute, right? You stood behind your sound system. You know, back in those days, defending your machine was you standing behind it. You know what I mean? And
this is my territory. Yeah.
You're standing behind your sound and you're defending it, and the audience is there, right? But now, in this time, there's no sound. The biggest stages that Irish and Chin has presented to the world, there's a PA system. There's spotlights. There's a stage, right? Now you're an artist. You're not a sound man, so to speak, anymore. You're a performer, right? So now skill and talent has to be on another level, right? But there are so many people still stuck in this whole understanding of what makes you a good sound man. And this is the bad part, the traditional part. So you will have those guys that would say, and Saxon, I used to have a big problem with this, and some of the sound systems that came before me as well, right? So you talk about Saxon and Addies and some of those, and I get it, I totally understand it now that I'm older, right? They didn't like the understanding, or they were of the understanding that you cannot crown a champion by people playing for 10 minutes. It doesn't show them have tune, and it don't show us that them have depth and right? So when I came in with the concept of World Clash, right, it wasn't accepted by them, and some of them still don't accept it now because of the traditional. That
you've got to play for 1 hour.
Yes,
1 hour.
That traditional thing of what defined the sounds. Remember, I said earlier in this conversation that there's nothing that you and I do the same way that we were doing 2 decades ago, right? But there are some people in the industry, and more than you know, that they hold on to that tradition so much that the industry is dying and they can't even see it. So playing 10 minutes, right? And 5 sounds or 6 sounds, playing 10 minutes, and a real competition, that foolishness, you know what I mean? Can't be no champion with that, right? Not having a sufficient amount of dubs, can't be no champion with that. Not being able to play dubs that other people can't play, can't be no champion with that. That's their philosophy, right? But here's the problem with it, right? The dubs cost money. The dubs cost a lot of money, right? Now, we have a culture, and I really want to get this over to your audience because it's really important for a better tomorrow, a better understanding tomorrow. So you have a culture that if you keep tradition at the forefront of the culture, what it would mean is that nobody else can enter except for the people who are already in the culture. Why am I saying that? The new generation of people who we want to come in, they can't afford to buy dub plates. It's too expensive, right? When we were building sound systems, and this may be harsh to everybody's ears, but it is the reality. Sound system culture was fueled by hustlers, street money. Whatever people were doing to get their money, it wasn't 9 to 5 money.
True.
Nobody was going to work and slaving, for 40 hours a week and then going back to buy dubs. That's not what sound system culture was built from. Sound system culture was built from disposable income. Street hustling, right? Which doesn't exist how it existed before, right? So you have now less rich people in sound system culture, right? So instead of our culture redefining or going back to the table and renegotiating what makes you a legitimate sound system, we choose to hold on to a tradition that we cannot afford to upkeep.
Yep.
So when a youngster who's in college that has talent comes to be a sound man, he gets turned away at the door. You don't got no dubs. You can't play such and such and such. Move from your son, right? Or again, I'm speaking of the bad parts of the culture because we can't speak of the good without the bad. This obsession with being able to have dead artists, and those dead artists make you a real sound man. Well, what about the man who's just starting a sound system today? Is he less of a sound man because he didn't have sense to start, or he didn't have the money or even the ambition or the knowledge to start his sound 15 years ago?
Or he may not have even been born.
Or he may not have even been born. So now he's less of a sound man, or not accepted in the fraternity because he can't play Gregory Isaac and Dennis Brown and Garnet Silk. I don't understand. As we move forward from generation to generation, whatever years that you're going to use to determine when a new generation starts, right? The rules have to slightly change as well. We cannot keep the rules the same way if we're looking for this thing to last as it was in 1985. You know, we can't feel that is the energy that is going to work today. Yep. That is the problem that we're having that's hurting the sound system culture. There's too much people in it that is using yesterday's rules when things were in a different time to govern what tomorrow looks like. And I'll say this, bluntly. You have guys that's not paying their mortgage, not paying their car notes because they want to buy dubs. Just to get a dub plate. What sense does that make, right? And the fact that the dubs are so hard to attain financially, it opens the door now to making fake dubs.
AI.
Right? Well, even before the AI.
Splice.
The AI is a whole different thing. The splice dubs, which then also turned around and hurt the industry. Right? So my argument is this, and people look at it as me selling out, right? But it's not selling out. It's trying to keep what we do in existence. You got to make the necessary changes. You got to, because you want younger people to come in. The music that we compete with, right? We have to allow other music to come into the arena, because the kid that's 20 years old or 18 years old, remember, we were going to dances from we were 14, 15 years old. We were sneaking into dances. We were putting on the silk shirts and the ballets and all of that and lining up at these clubs like we really belonged in there. If you got in, you were lucky. If you didn't get in, then you go home. But we don't see 15-year-old people trying to get into our clubs. No. Right? We're sound men, and we have kids that are 15, 16, 17, 18, and none of them want to pick up a turntable or a dub plate to play in a dance. They don't even want to come to your dance when you're playing. Right? So it shows that there's a divide. There's a divide. Right? So if my kids and your kids are not inspired by Garnet Silk dubs because they never heard Garnet Silk's music, if they don't know who Dennis Brown is, why are we forcing them to have to compete with that? Right? If the music is not relatable, the new generation is not entering. And that's what it comes down to. Remember when I said to you guys that we used to keep these hooky parties, right? And all of the kids from my school would come. We wouldn't go to school that day, and we keep these parties, and that's how we got big. That was part of it, right? Well, it was my peers that pushed me over the edge. So promoters in my community could see, oh, when you book those guys, a bunch of kids is gonna come, and that's how we make money, right? But what we were playing was relatable to the audience that was following us, back then. So these kids, if you're looking for them to usher in a new generation of children into the arena, they have to play what's relatable to those kids. So therefore, they have to compete with what's relatable to those kids. Dennis Brown and Garnet Silk is not. So what the industry needs to create, in my humble opinion, or not so humble opinion, we have to have two different versions of our sport, right? When people like me want to stay connected to the root of it, we go to the root of it. So that would be the, tune for tune and Dennis Brown for Dennis Brown or whoever for whoever. And we enjoy that. If two sound systems from yesterday in my childhood, Kilimanjaro and Bodyguard is clashing, I'm going to go.
You're going to be there.
I'm going to be there and I'm going to be like, yes, I remember that. But I also know that Kilimanjaro and Bodyguard clashing cannot move this industry forward. So we have to have an arena to maintain the authentic part of the culture, and then we have to have another arena that keeps the sport moving forwards. You can't have one. So those who are fighting for that authentic arena, it comes at a price. No progression. That's it. It's done.
It's done.
So if we start that arena with 1,000 people, know that in a matter of time, it's going to be down to no one. Because no one new is coming in. Or we have a choice to cultivate a new way of competing, World Bash, and others like it. Because let's be honest, right? And I want people to really understand this. My ambition is not to be the only promoter. This never will be and is my ambition, right? My ambition is to be able to open a door where other people see it feasible to go in. So I'm taking the chance for everyone. Since you guys don't see the vision, let me take the chance and prove to you guys that it works. And now I'm holding the door open for everybody else to run in, because it's impossible for one promotional company to keep the sport alive.
True.
I can't do it by myself. I can't keep every dance. I can't keep the dances in England. I can't keep the dances in Jamaica and New York and Canada all at the same time. So you need different entities that's investing in the culture for the culture to grow in the right way. Simultaneously, you need multiple talent to be hot at the same time. The era that you spoke about with the 90s, the reason why the 90s is the greatest era for us, it's not only because of the music, it's because we had so many sound teams doing well at the same time. So, you would stand in the middle of the room and you'd be like, whoa, if Jaro Clash Saxon, that I got bad. And then you go, if BSI is buck up black, that I got bad. And that's what we were doing at the time, because there was so much combinations of talented.
Yeah, there was choice.
Yes, there's so much that was so interesting to you, because you're gonna match them up and you're gonna say, okay, this guy, him have whole heap of dub and him have talk. This guy not really have whole heap of dub, but him have talk, and the people them love him. Well, let's see what's gonna happen, and that's what it was. And also at the time too, nobody backed down from clashing. You were able to pick up your phone and say, clash today, clash today, clash today. So what happened was sound systems left Jamaica and they went to England, clashed, and then the next day they flew to Canada to clash, and then the week after they were in New York clashing, and sometimes it was the same sound they were clashing. It helped to build the arena and create the excitement. So we cannot have an arena that's exciting if only one sound are going bad. So who's going to be his nemesis? Who's going to make him be the best that he can be? How do you even know that he's really good if there's nobody for him to prove that he's good to?
Yep.
And the person that you need to prove that he's good has to also be equally good, has to be certified. We can't certify any of the new sound systems because there's no certification. It doesn't exist. So we're stuck. And I say this in every interview, and we argue, and people see me and they talk and they say that I'm fighting the culture and this and that. A couple of years ago I was saying to the guys, the sound clash is dead. It's dead. It caused a huge problem in the culture. Chin is turning his back on sound system culture. No, Chin is bringing something to your attention that you guys need to pay attention to. If you don't know that something is wrong, you can't fix it. If you're driving your car and that indicating light never comes on, or you don't hear a strange noise, you'll never know that something is about to happen in your car, right? Well, it's the same thing. I gotta use my influence and my reach to say, this is what's happening, guys, pay attention, let's fix it, right? And it was turned into a negative way So it wasn't like I was trying to help. They put it like I was hurting. But in our culture, we have to speak to each other culturally, right? There's a way that we talk in our arena. So if an artist, 2 artists was to clash, and 1 artist lose, we say artist B dead. That's what we say, right? Doesn't mean that artist B is not going to perform tomorrow. He's dead tonight, right? When we have a sound competition and somebody loses, we say the sound dead. What does the dead really mean in the culture? Dead in our culture has to be defined as not performing to your best ability at the moment in time. That's all it is, you know. That's how we use the word dead. It's a slang that is defined by you did not perform up to standards at the moment in time. So you're dead, right? It doesn't mean that you're not coming back for it again tomorrow. But of course, Chin said it. So when Chin says it, it means that the whole industry is dead. What I was merely saying to them is that the industry is not performing up to standard at this time.
Yeah, I kind of hear you. It's almost like saying, guys, let's take a step back. Let's look at it from within, from a deeper level. What needs to happen to move us forward? Because we can't just keep doing what we've been doing for the last 20, 25 years, one-on-one clashes, world clash. We need to redefine the industry.
You have to subtract to add. It's life. That's the math. That's the math equation of life. You have to subtract to add. Sometimes you have to stop. You have to, pay attention and say, but wait, this not gonna work. Let me refrain from doing this because it will equate to more if I just lose now to gain later, right? Our industry doesn't understand that, right? And one of the main things, because I was talking about the bad things in the culture that we inherited, the number one misconception or conception that is totally wrong with our sound system culture is that it's not a business. Remember, we spoke of where it's coming from, and when we examine and we really are truthful to ourselves, where it's coming from, it wasn't a business. The people who were financing it didn't need the money back from it, but the people who inherited it didn't understand that it's now time to turn it into a lucrative business. So everyone just kept inheriting the arena, and doing what the forefathers did with less money. So now we're in a state now where we have an industry of talented people that we allow to solely depend on whether an artist is willing to do a dub plate for you. So now you have a culture that is yours, that you subjected to the attitude, the disrespect, or the smiling face of an artist. So you don't even control your situation. And the artists them control it because you made it that way when we had a chance to change it and put it in a different direction, right? COVID allowed us to make that change if we were paying attention. But what did the sound systems do? They voiced more dubs during COVID. So when the artists had no money, because there was no shows happening for 2 years plus, the only income for artists was these sound men who kept sending their money to voice dubs, right? Now you would think that when COVID was over, post-COVID, that the artists would look back at sound men and say, thank you. It was a rough time for me, and you guys financially fed my family and blah, blah, blah.
Got me through.
No, that's not what happened. The artists turned around and basically said, yeah, if one could have find money in a COVID, no one can find double that money they know. Because in a COVID, one find the money and you guys weren't playing nowhere. No one are player. So no, if me did want $5, give me $10 no. Can't have more money. So it totally backfired, and again, we're down the rabbit hole that we've been digging since the 80s. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of us creating an arena where just come. What if one was to ask me what's my vision for sound system culture and sound system competitions, just come and bust the place. just come and bust the place. Who bosses the place the most is the person that should go home with all the accolades. That's it.
That's it. Simple.
That way we can afford to continue it. And we're not depending on the approval of an artist to show up at a studio for a dub plate. You now can sit down and you can plan your stuff. You buy your music on iTunes or wherever you get your music from, and you put your speech together and you put your presentation together, and you come to the event, the concert, right? And you show what you have and give the crowd a good show, and the crowd, and that's what the culture needs to be. Nothing cannot thrive if it's fully dependent on another entity that doesn't show any concern about its existence. Today's artists show no concern about the existence of sound system culture. So why would we, want to fully leave it in the hands of the artists? I mean, if I'm saying something that doesn't make sense, people tell me it doesn't make sense. But I'm coming from the time when dub plates were a necessity. But I'm seeing now when they're not a necessity. In fact, if you go to a bashment party, they're not even playing dubs anymore. We just spoke, this conversation has gone full circle. We spoke earlier in the conversation about going to Stone Love, going to Metro Media, and if you didn't hear the dubs, you felt like you got cheated. Now you go to a dance with Stone Love and Metro Media and these big sounds, you probably have to beg them to play a dub, because the dub plate messes up the vibe in the party. You see, they have evolved. They realize that, okay, even though dub plates is our thing and that's our signature, right? The people who are coming to the dance not into it.
There's a time and a place for it.
Time and a place for it. Yep. So what does Selector them do? Selector them start use creativity, them start use speech, them start, one man we're used to, because I'm coming from a time also when soca and them thing they couldn't play in a dance hall. We evolved. At least the juggling guys evolved, and they realized that, but wait, people want ear garage, right? People want ear soca. People want to hear Afro beats. We gotta play it. It's not only because at first it was dance hall and reggae. Then hip hop started to sneak in, look a bit. You remember? And then look at R&B, look at Mary J. Blige, and then popular song that start sneaking, right? And it stopped there. That was our scene, mixed with a couple dub plate. Now we're seeing a whole infiltration of other music. And you know why this music is infiltrating the culture or the dancehall space? Because the people who are occupying the space are inspired by this type of music. That's the music they listen to when they're not in the parties. So they want to hear familiar things when they're in the space enjoying themselves. They don't want to come to the space and enjoy something that they can only hear in the space. You know what I mean? It's not that era anymore. Once upon a time, back in the early days, the King Jammins and the U-Raw, Star Garfield, you would go to a dance just for hear a song that only that song can play. It's not like that no more. Nobody's coming for that. We're coming to hear the popular songs that inspire us day to day in the dancehall space, right? So when you really look at if you navigate this conversation that we're having, the juggling world has somewhat evolved. And that is why the parties are continuing to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now think of the juggling world if they didn't want to play the soca and the garage and the wherever else they're playing, the Afro beats. Think about it. They probably would be just where the Sound Clash people are. Because people would be like, I'm not going. So if we just pay attention to what's happening and stop being in denial and stop gripping traditional and say, yo, I'm in a business what no man say, I saw the thing I have to say because this is what makes you a sound. If the juggling selectors did that, scene would be gone. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. When we look at the bashment world, we realize that change can be made for a positive outcome.
Yep. Very, very deep. A closing question to you, Chin. What does 2025 and beyond look like for Irish and Chin in terms of what's next?
I mean, for me, I don't think my agenda ever changed. It's just figuring it out. to be honest with you. You know, I spend my days trying to figure it out, testing a lot of different theories that I have in my mind. To be honest with you guys, World Bash is not a new theory. I had this vision of World Bash prior to ending World Clash. I just didn't know how to present it. That part of it didn't come to me. So I had a vision that I wanted to do a World Bash thing, right? But I just didn't know how to. When Mighty Crown was closing their career last year, I found it as the perfect vessel to go to all the sound systems and be like, yo, I need you on this stage, I need you on this stage, I need you on the stage, right? Because I think if I went to them prior to that, they wouldn't have saw the vision, because they would have thought that I'm trying to, you know, probably trick them. Oh, Chin wants us to clash for juggling money. Get out of here with that, or something like that, right? They wouldn't see the vision of it, right? So I've always had this vision of putting multiple decorated sound systems on one stage, right? Just like if you go to a stage show and you see a ton of artists that have hit songs and catalog. I've always wanted to do that with the culture. Last year I got the opportunity to do that, and once that opportunity came, I said, you know what? I'm calling this World Bash, because it's gonna be a way for me to launch something that's been jumping around in my brain for a very long time, right? So now that I've launched the World Bash series, and we've done Canada so far, we've done the UK so far, of course we've done New York, 2025 and beyond looks like, for me, it's just experimenting, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't have the answer, but I have the ambition to seek it. I'm willing to do the work to find the formula, you know what I mean, to make it work. You know, if truth be told, right, my formula has been supreme in the sound system culture for over 20 years, right? The way people compete now, it's my formula. I created that formula. I introduced that formula to our arena in 1998, as you mentioned, right? Multiple sound system clashing, playing 15 and 10 minutes. And over the years after that, it just became the thing, you know what I mean? The new way of competing. But it's old now. The time has changed. And I'm on borrowed time with that formula. I'm on borrowed time as Chin, because I need another Chin. This is not about me being the brand or the face of sound system culture. Maybe currently I am. Maybe some people will look at it like that. But for the legacies of all of us who contributed, we need another Chin. We need somebody who's 25 years old, 21 years old to come in and have that same zeal and ambition that I had when I was that age. You know what I mean? I was in college, you know, doing sound system business when I'm supposed to be studying for my engineering exams. I was all in. You know, I used to go to college and I would go, you know, I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and I would go to school from Monday to Thursday, right? And right after my classes on Thursday, I would either drive to New York to play sound, or I would drive to New York to catch a flight to go, because Mighty Crown was playing somewhere, you know, and then I would have to find a way to get back to school before class on Monday morning, right? I was always dedicated to what I'm doing, right? We need another youngster, or a few youngsters, dedicated in that same way. But to ask what it looks like work. You know what I mean? It looks like trying to figure it out. It looks like, you know, trying to just, you throw the puzzle on the floor, and you got to put the pieces together a little bit by little bit to get it done. And you know, you may, and I want you guys to realize, look at it this way. Sometimes you're there for hours looking at the pieces of the puzzle and they don't match. And somebody just walks in the room and say, oh, you should put that there and put that there. And right away the puzzle is done, right? So what we may need is that person to walk into the room and say, yo, put that there, put that there. You know what I mean? But until that person comes to relieve me of my duties, I ain't got nothing else to do but to push and keep pushing. You know, I've dedicated a whole media platform to what I do. It's my passion, you know what I mean? It's just, and I got so much out of it because I'm the first, I don't want to say, I'm not smarter than anybody else. I'm more determined than most people, right? I don't take failure well. And I feel like anybody who won or anybody who wins, all that means is that that's the one time that you didn't fail. Yep. That's it. Every winner was once a failure at something, or probably the same thing that they won. So for me, it's like I look at the culture and I'm determined not to lose. I'm not smarter than anybody. I'm dedicated more than most. And I've lost a lot of money in sound system culture. Don't get it twisted. We've lost a lot of money because in our culture, in order to get people to believe, you have to show them. And sometimes showing them that this is the next hot person costs you money. You know what I mean? If you really look at the last set of quote unquote new generations in the hardcore arena, those are all my sounds. Those guys all came off of my stage. I gave those guys the shot. You know what I mean? Do I want to be praised for it? No. But what I want people to recognize is that if you create the platform and you are determined to make it work, somebody will flourish from it. You know, so whether it be Dynamic, it's my sound, Jaworks, Code Red, you know, the list goes on. These are the sounds. Warrior, these are the sounds that came off of my stage, my platform. These are the sounds that I gambled with and said, you know what, I'm gonna do a Rumble series across the world and I'm gonna try to find some new sounds because I'm tired of the old sounds. You know what I mean? Not really tired of, but I saw where there was a need for new growth, you know? So I can't answer how beyond looks. You know, I can't see over the wall yet, but I know when I climb to the top of the wall, I know what I'm expecting to see when I peep over. You know what I mean? And I'm doing everything that I can to make sure when I get to the top of the wall and I look over, my expectations are fulfilled. And I need for other people to also just see that vision. You know, we have to stop being selfish. Every sound man or sound owner that says to me, yo, Chin, idiot thing you talk about. Man can come in a dance, come play 45 and oh, me have my tenor saw them and me have my nitty gritty and me have my this and me have my that. You know, if a boy should have started him sound earlier, and not my fault that. It's the most selfish thing that I could hear. Because when you're patting yourself on the back, someone should be kicking you in your butt. Because what you're merely saying is that because you want to play your tenor saws in a dance and get a forward for it, the industry shouldn't move any further. Because you want to live in what you've been able to collect. You understand what I'm saying? You don't want somebody to be able to play Ring the Alarm on dubplate on 45 because you want to play it on dubplate. And if he plays it on 45, then it takes away the fact that you went to the studio for 10 hours to voice that dub from and 20 years ago, that meant something. Doesn't mean anything now. Nope. The only thing that it means now is no growth. You know what I mean? So we have to be careful. I like to ask the question, are you in this culture for yourself or are you in it for the growth? Right? Because don't matter what, every time a opportunity is presented to us, real sound men, I'm talking about those who live by the code, not those who just call themselves sound men. When the opportunity is presented to you, the growth of the industry has to come first before you. And if you're doing it the other way, then you're just selfish and you're part of the problem. It cannot be what's best for you. It has to be what's best for the industry. When somebody presents something to you, is this safe for the industry? Yes, safe for the industry. Let's talk business. You shouldn't be allowed to talk business before you figure out if it's safe for the industry. Now, that's hard for some people because a lot of us are not wired that way. I've made a lot of mistakes in my 28 years or something like that, right? I lost track. Every bad decision that I made was made for the right reason. Now, let me explain what I mean. I've never set out to do the wrong thing, but sometimes the wrong things happen because, the way you visualize it mentally, it doesn't happen that way practically. But my intentions always start at, this will help to move the arena forward. Then when the practical kicks in, you're like, uh-oh, I didn't see that. I didn't consider that. And then you got to go back to the drawing board. So my mistakes were made unintentionally. But even when you look at my track record, I have way more accomplishments than mistakes.
Yes.
And that's what's important, right? One, I have the positive. Two, the negative was made with an intention, not to hurt, but to help. And that's all we can do. We can't do anything more. You know what I mean? We cannot do anything more. So I just want to see the thing move forward. I want to be able to, hopefully 5 more years from now, you'll be sitting and interviewing the next Chin in his establishment, wherever that may be. And you can say to yourself, me and Chin reasoned about this. You know what I mean? Because it's a relay race, right? You gotta pass it. You gotta pass it. But what happens when there's nobody to pass it to? You gotta keep running. You gotta keep running until you can't drop it, right?
True.
You gotta keep running until it's time that you find someone to pass it. Now, the older we get, the slower we're gonna run, but we're gonna run nonetheless.
True.
That's the important part of it.
I think that's a perfect way to finish. Chin, I want to give thanks to you from the Reggae Interviews team for everything that you're doing for the culture. World Bash is coming up, and we look forward to 2025 and beyond as well. Give thanks.
Give thanks, man. It was a great vibe. Thank you for allowing me to just express what's here. You know what I mean? That's the important part of it. When you can express to an audience what's here and make them understand why you do what you do. So thank you for that opportunity.
Reggae Interviews. Word Sound Power.